what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinthemorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
Liberty, are you with us?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
Jack Gencavage, what's it called?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
You can check out all the shenanigans that Philly Chris and Mike G are up to throughout the entire week. Check out our videos and all of our social media profiles. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who listen to check us out at MikeGinthemorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams, bringing you the Scott Adams Show weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. We've got the man, Dan Bongino, coming at you weekdays from noon until 3 p.m. We've also got the headliner, intellectual giant Ben Shapiro, bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And finally, we love having him at the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ. You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. I am very excited about this week's episode. We got a very special guest with us. We've got Jack Gencavage. You know, we've been doing this series on comeback stories. We had Jesse Crossan join us, who spent 19 years incarcerated in Virginia, came out and started a program for second chances. We had Jason Stack of Stack's Farmstead come on the show, talked about being incarcerated, maybe not 19 years, but quite a few times, and his amazing story turning his life around. We had from prison to pastor, Jesse Comrie, talking about how his third time in prison, he met Jesus Christ and came out a different man. And we had Uncle Jerry come on, talk a little bit about his comeback story, his absolutely horrendous upbringing, all the abuse and neglect that he endured over the years. And we had Kay Solo last week, former member of the Latin Kings, incarcerated at Rikers Island from the time that he was just a teenager. Talk a little bit about his story. This week, we don't necessarily have a comeback story. I like to call this more of an underdog story. It's an underdog story because Jack wrote this absolutely tremendous book called The Existence of the Poor and Unknown about his band, which was called the Underground Band. And it's their story of how they ventured to Los Angeles as really kids with no money, no plan really, other than they were going to make it some way, somehow. It's a tremendous story. I strongly recommend everybody buy the book and check this out, because really the whole time you're rooting for these underdogs to come through in the end. Jack, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a shameless pitch, Mike.
There you go. Perfect.
Shameless marketing.
He's got the book. He's holding it up. Those of us who are listening over the airwaves can't see it, but you can check it out. It is on Amazon, correct? The Existence of the Poor and Unknown?
Correct. Yes.
And if you come on all of our social media platforms, you'll be able to check out links to go ahead and get yourself a copy of the book. So, Jack, first I want to ask you, before we get into a little bit about your story, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go ahead and write this book.
Oh, man. That's a powerful question, Mike. First of all, I want to say I'm really shocked that you're having me on the show, considering how bad I slammed you in the book. the inside joke to the listeners is and viewers is that it reads like a hagiography to this guy, and he knows it. And I all nonsense aside, I have a very sardonic sense of humor, but I'm being honest. He is one of the greatest guys I ever met. He's a great guy, and anybody who listens to this show, Philly Chris knows. I think Liberty might know that I speak the truth. So, Mike, thank you for this opportunity to shamelessly pitch The Existence of the Poor and Unknown, currently on Amazon.
Well, it's our pleasure because I had the honor of being able to read the book before it was released. And frankly, I know you were looking for some input and everything, but I could not put the thing down. My only gripe about it, Jack, was that it wasn't longer because I
Thank you.
was legitimately disappointed when it was over that I wouldn't have that
Cool.
to look forward to anymore because it was such a great story, so captivating. But what gets you to the point where you say, okay, I'm going to put this on paper because
Yeah.
I'm sure that, not everybody goes ahead and does that. You're not quite sure what other people are going to think about the story.
Well, we left for Los Angeles in February of 1985, and when I say we, the underground band is myself. I went by Vibe in the band, Vibe, Vibe. John Fisher, who's currently in a band called Vertigo Vultures. They're playing in the central Pennsylvania area and elsewhere. Outstanding band. Simon Barr, Timothy McClure, who went by the moniker Simon Barr, and a guy that we auditioned, the drummer in Los Angeles, Dave Hall. So the three of us, myself, John, and Simon, got in a school bus and drove 3,000 miles with, as you mentioned, not a lot of money, limited supplies, and now going from the inception to the very end, and for years I had notes sitting around, Mike, and the story burned in my mind. It was a powerful story, which is what made it so enjoyable to write, because I had notes, and John would come over. Mike, you jammed with John and
I did, and he's not kidding when he says John can play.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's a 1%er in the 1% of the guitar world. I think
Awesome.
Mike would agree. And Mike himself is an accomplished player. Don't let him fool you. He can play.
He's pretty
So,
good.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, he is. And so Mike complimenting John is a huge compliment to John. So we're sitting around, and I told John, instead of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, I had this idea. Keep in mind, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous was a big show in the 80s with Robin Leach and the Champagne Wishes and Caviar Dreams.
I remember when they had me on. Yeah.
Yeah, for us, it was like sewer tuna and sleeping on floors, And I said to John, I've got this idea for a book called The Existence of the Poor and Unknown. And he's like, well, John is very laconic. He's very like, then write it, Jack. And I'm like, well, here's how we're going to do this. After we get done jamming, I'm going to take a legal pad, yellow pad. I'm not an attorney like you, Mike. I'll call it a yellow pad. And I'm just gonna interview you. And I had his long-term memory, my long-term memory, and I just repeatedly and continually went over, now what happened at this particular period of time. And keep in mind, I had notes because I was more or less the manager of the band at the time. And it went like that for a few years, jamming, getting notes, waking up at 3:00 in the morning because I couldn't sleep because this thing was on my mind. It was that captivating to myself. I would throw a pair of, it was in the winter, I would throw a pair of sweatpants on, a shirt, go in my office and just write longhand. And then I put it on a Word document and it all went from there, man.
Wow. So a lot went into this. It wasn't like just off of the top of your head.
Yeah.
You had these conversations
Yeah, a
with
lot
John
went
and
into it.
everything like
Yeah.
that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Couple of shout outs to our listeners. We got Rita checking in. Give her a hey now, Philly Chris.
Hey now, Rita.
Hey now. How about Brian Harper checking in? Brian Harper, give him a hey now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Harper in the house. Hey now.
You mean the master of disaster?
Master, the one and only. The one and only. You got K Solo checking in. Pop him back in. Give him a hey now.
Hey now, K Solo. Welcome back.
And Dag Nabbit checking in. Give Dag Nabbit a hey now.
Oh, Dag Nabbit. Here you are.
We owe him a prize, I believe. I believe we owe Dag Nabbit a prize.
So,
Jack, once you finally got this thing on paper, did you show other people? Obviously, I had the opportunity to read this. Did you show other people some of the stuff as it was coming together before it was a finished product?
Yeah, my wife is a voracious reader and a huge critic. And I thought, if I can get this by her, right? Incidentally, my wife's name is Lisa Beth. Mike, you were at our wedding. You know, you fell in love with Liberty, so you know what it's like to fall in love and get struck by lightning with a wonderful woman. I never thought it would happen to me, man. I got to tell you. But at any rate, I ran it by her, and she had this smile on her face, and she laconically said, "I like your style." And I said, "Well, I like the way that sounds. Are you referring to the book?"
What were you wearing at the time?
Philly, man, Philly. But she was referring to the book. And I knew that if I could get it by her and some other really, critical people, that I had something. And as I said before, that the story itself was a powerful story, and we had our finger on the brass ring. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too many details away, because it'll take away the dramatic impact should any of your readers decide to order it on Amazon. I'd like those to stand on their own volition, but it was a powerful story, and what can I tell you, man? It felt really good. It was cathartic to do it and to tell this story, because we came so close, and it was about growth. It was about triumph. It was about disappointment. It was about facing rejection, being rejected, getting 10, 15 steps ahead, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's really the existence of the poor and unknown.
How long did it take you to write it, Jack?
About 3 years, Philly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what year, what age were you when you started to play music, when you started to pick up a guitar?
I would say like 16.
And by the time you're headed out to Los Angeles on this old school bus with food that you basically brought that was prepared from home from your families, not even buying food on the road, you're bringing stuff with you, hoping that it lasts as you get across the country. How old were you at that point?
25. Okay. And at this point, I think it's essential, imperative, really, that we rewind a little, because John was in a band, and this is in chapter 1. The Moon Was Full. Chapter 1 is called The Moon Was Full. It's about this incredible band that John and his brother were in called Full Moon. Full Moon led off for 38 Special, Nazareth, Blue Oyster Cult back then. They played before thousands of people. They were an exceptional talent, and John and Joe wrote some really incredible hard rock songs. It was like a hard rock band. I don't even know how to compare them to anybody. And they started when those guys were like 13 or 14, 15 years old. Wow. And one day John just said, something, let's jam. He said to me, he had already taught me how to play bar chords, open chords, notes inside of chords. I was playing rhythm. And so it was me playing rhythm guitar, John on lead, Joe, who was the lead singer and rhythm guitar player. Well, guitar player. he did a lot more than rhythm for Full Moon, songwriter. He just got behind the drums, and Joe is an exceptional talent. He's one of these guys that he can play multiple instruments extremely proficiently. And then Simon, who was in the road crew, Full Moon had a paid road crew, so Simon got behind the microphone and did background vocals and played bass, and we just jammed. I mean, this was the inception of the underground band. I mean, we had absolutely zero intention of making it into a band. That's what was so incredible about it. Zero intention, because there was already this established band called Full Moon.
Right. And so you ultimately decide you're going to go across the country, but Joe's not going with you, right?
No, Joe moved to Long Island, where he started a solo career.
And so John decides that he's coming out with you guys, and you're taking your talents to the West Coast. What did your family think about that when you told them, hey, we're packing up, we're headed west? What did they think about that? Did they think you were nuts?
They hated my guts.
Typical reaction, right?
We have to understand. No, I wax sardonically on that one. They were disgusted. My father was, he was Jack Webb. He was a trooper, a 35-year veteran of the Pennsylvania State Police. He was a trooper. He was a detective. He became one of the leading forensic document examiners in the country. And he just, I had a college degree, and he thought I was going to go to law school. And I'm like, no, I'm in this band called the Underground Band. And my father used to sit there, and he was an ultra conservative, and he's like, the name itself makes me sick. And I'm just sitting there eating my meatballs at the table, like, all right, well, that's your problem,
That's funny.
That's great. Dag Nabbit wrote in. He said, "Full Moon from the Hershey, Harrisburg, PA area from the 70s." That's them?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's correct, Dag Nabbit. You got it right. So we've got somebody who's familiar with Full Moon's work.
Very cool.
Listening to the program. That's pretty cool. So
excuse me one second, Mike. Their material can still be purchased on Monster Records. If you,
wow.
I mean, they had a guy approach them and put a disc together for them.
That's awesome. Monster Records.
Cool.
You can still check out Full Moon. I will have to do that. So when you're heading out there, did you have any, especially with your dad not giving his blessing, so to speak, did you have any hesitation when you went out there? I mean, maybe this is a bad idea. What did I get myself into?
No.
Never.
No, we were on fire. It's really essential at this point to tell you that this music, I mean, I'm a registered independent, and philosophically, I'm a conservative. I mean, I listen to XPN. I stay centered in the middle. I mean, talk to me about. I go issue by issue. Talk to me about Second Amendment, and you'd think I'm an ardent conservative. Talk to me about stem cell research, and I'm like, you'd think I was a far left liberal, because I look at the issue and say, if live embryos are going to alleviate human suffering, use as many of them as possible. The point being, I stay centered and focused on issues, and I think essentially that's what's missing from society today. That's me on my soapbox for the evening. But the Underground Band was, we're down the basement, and I'm in these government classes, and we're having these discussions about nuclear war and abject poverty and racism. And this is like 1982, 83, when we're down the basement jamming with the colored lights on, and the, in an enlightened state of mind, drinking imported beer. We're all loose. We're talking about these issues, and we're not thinking about writing songs. But all of a sudden, John's playing, and I'm like, I go up to the microphone, in an enlightened state of mind. I'll leave that up to the viewer to think. And I start saying, how many lives? How many lives? You know, it wasn't me in 1863, but how many lives were taken that year? Indigenous fear throughout this ugly year. Liberty had died in the conflict of lives. And then the chorus, how many lives? How many lives? How many lives had been taken that year? And John's looking over at me and he's playing on the lower registers, Mike. And he's got this smile on his face like, damn, where did this song come from? He didn't plan it. And it was raw inspiration. And it was just all like about a commentary about the horror of war. Whether, you know, you're some ultra right wing, hardcore, you know, Marine that loves war, you know, or you're a hippie that believes that you're going to end war by blowing up buildings. It to us, it was like an issue. It was something that was on our minds, and we let it fly. And that's how all these songs came to be. It was incredible, and it was raw inspiration, raw enjoyment, and it wasn't all, you know, it wasn't all about social issues or politics. I mean, there were love songs, there were everything and anything that came to us. We jammed in that basement and recorded, recorded on cassettes. We had about 50 90-minute cassettes full of original material.
Wow, that's
awesome.
That is a whole lot of material. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So, Jack, you're talking about the subject matter of your lyrics. Kind of reminds me of Jim Morrison style stuff when you're talking about that. I get that sort of vibe, if you'll excuse the overusage of the word there. But did you guys ever catch any heat for the subject matter of your lyrics?
No, we never did, because, you know, this was Los Angeles in the 80s, and I mean, it was never politicized to the point where, you know, we offended anybody. We just, I think we just made people think. I think band members, whether it's Bono or Sting or John Lennon, guys like that are musicians. All they can do is create a commentary and make people think and make up their own minds. They're not politicians. And I can't stand it when artists try to become politicians and tell people how they should think or feel. I think the best thing, Mike, one of my favorite Beatles songs, and I think it's a phenomenal song, and I'm Philly, I'm sure you'll agree, is Revolution. You know, and I picture John Lennon and Paul McCartney sitting around and talking, and this is just what, to engage my imagination. You know, there's all this Maoist fervor going on in the 60s, and let's say John looks at Paul and says, well, you know, man, you say you want a revolution, we'd all like to change the world. Hey, we got something there. You know, it's like that's an incredible song, and it embodies what I think songwriters are supposed to do. Just put it out there and make people think. It's like, if you don't have an alternative for change, you know,
be the change.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have an alternative, then somebody else must have an alternative. You're just
No, I definitely hear you. Did you get to see that documentary? I think it's about 9 hours long with 3 parts. Get Back with the Beatles.
No.
Oh, you got to see it, because there's a lot of behind the scenes insight on that. And one of the amazing things about it is how crystal clear the picture is. I've never seen the Beatles look like this. Obviously, I wasn't around to see them in real time at any point together, but I've never seen them so clear, the way, as magnificent as the quality is. It feels like you're in the room with them. So I strongly encourage you to check that out. But it's almost
I,
exactly the way you just described it. You see a lot of those kinds of scenes in there. So
I
you're right on the money.
I heard it was good. Yeah,
It's
and
absolutely phenomenal.
and that's what that I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big XPN fan, WXPN out of the University of Pennsylvania, and
Mm.
you know, they've got a lot of artists coming on, and I contacted Bruce Warren at the station one time and said, Bruce, I think to some extent, to his credit, he called me back, which I thought was really cool because I told him I was working on this book and that I wanted to get him a copy of it. And he said he'd be looking forward to reading it. And I said, you guys have this slogan on XPN that it's all about the music. I said, but a lot of times it seems to me some of your people are getting a little political. And I said, here's an example. I can't think of a better example. Okie from Muskogee, the Merle Haggard song.
Right.
One of their people called that a racist song. And I've written songs. I write and I analyze the vocals and I'm like, how is that racist? I mean, racism, I think I speak for all of us. We all deplore racism. Racism is a terrible thing, racism of any ilk.
Contrary to what the left will tell you.
Right.
Yes, we all can't stand racism.
Yeah. And
really not cool with it.
To Bruce Warren's credit, he said, you're right. It's not a racist song. Because I interviewed Merle Haggard and he's like, hey, we were just drinking, sitting around one day talking about people in our hometown and we wrote that song. It was not intended to be racist. And yet now you've got before, I don't know how many people were listening to XPN that day, a lot. And they're like listening to a DJ or one of the XPN people call this song racist.
Yeah.
What about it were they alleging is racist?
Pardon me?
What about it were they alleging is racist? I've got the
I don't know.
lyrics pulled up over here.
She didn't explain herself. She just said it's racist.
Because Oklahoma, of course.
Yeah, right.
Everybody in Oklahoma is racist. Right?
Yeah.
It must be.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a word on the street.
Unless I'm missing something over here, I'm not seeing it. I am ashamed to say that having lived in Oklahoma for 6 years, I've heard the title of the song many times, but I can't claim to know the lyrics inside and out. But yeah, that seems to be the fallback for a lot of these positions these days. They throw that in there. So anyhow, let's talk a little bit more about the underground band. I don't want to spoil the entire book for everybody because everybody, frankly, should get out there and get themselves a copy and read it. It'll be much more enjoyable that way. But there were some low points and some high points, and I want to talk a little bit about each of them, so our audience could get just a little bit of a taste of how bad things got and really how great things got. First of all, what do you think was the high point for you? And you don't have to go into tremendous detail and everything, but what do you think was one of your most favorite moments as a part of the underground band through this whole experience?
Oh man, divorcing myself for a moment from the business end of it, because there's a lot there regarding how we elevated ourselves and how we I don't even want to mention her name because it would give it away. But there was a wonderful woman that got involved with us, a very powerful woman who believed in us a great deal, and she's mentioned in the book. So somebody will read about that and about how she came about dealing with the band. But
this is somebody from Hollywood.
Well, this is somebody in the a music industry mogul, heavyweight,
Gotcha,
and Judith Thornstein is her name. She's a very high, powerful entertainment attorney. She had Rat back then, the heavy metal band Rat, or glam rock, or whatever they'd be considered. She had the little black kid Emmanuel Lewis from Webster. She represented him.
Rat was Round and Round, right?
Yeah, Round and Round.
Yeah,
the firm Bushkin, Gaines, and Jonas handled Johnny Carson Carson
wow.
Productions.
Yeah,
That's
so this
big,
is
yeah.
the to the top of the top, and you end up getting a hold of them and getting them to
Yeah,
represent the band.
yeah. But
Amazing.
that's the business end, Mike. The high point was getting on stage and seeing people enjoy that music and looking at the band member, each of us looking at one another with smiles on our face and looking out at a crowd, and it's priceless.
Oh,
It
you
literally is
performed for
priceless.
a politician for their victory party, a very prominent politician, and there were Hollywood actors there, right? Well, was that any different for you being on stage for something like that versus being on stage at one of the clubs? What were some of the clubs that you regularly played out in Los Angeles?
Let's see. We played the Central and the Strip. We we played Gazzari's,
Mm.
which was very heavy metal glam rock. Van Halen played Gazzari's a lot on their way up, and you know, eh, we, our image was somewhat along the lines of U2 or the Police in terms of, we didn't have a lot of we didn't have any piercings, any tattoos. We had relatively short hair. Uh, so we get up on stage and we're playing, and there's these chicks in spandex pants and guys with like 13 tattoos chewing gum and looking at us like, get the hell out of here, you who the hell are you guys and why would we care about you?
Right.
We're waiting, we're gonna head that now, we're gonna head down to the Troubadour and see Poison.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, so there was that, but eventually our home became Madame Wong's West in Santa Monica.
Gotcha.
Cool.
And so when you're playing out there and you've got a room that's packed, because by the time you guys really get going, people are coming out to see you guys, right?
Well, we eventually developed the following of about 75, maybe 100 people we could draw. And I'm really glad you asked that, Mike, because it's not like you advertise and 200 people come in on your ad packed in to see you. If you're a heavy metal band or a glam rock band in the 80s, yeah. Bret Michaels told us, we went to see him one of the first days we were in the school bus because we had his number. And let me tell you something, he is a great guy. Bret is cool. I mean, he told us where we can play, where we can't play. He was fantastic. And
you got his number because he's a Pennsylvania guy, or
no, I don't have his number.
No. I said
I have it. Hold on a minute, Mike. Let me pull it up.
No. I said you had his number originally because he's a Pennsylvania guy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that how you initially got it? Mutual friend or something?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, if you were a heavy metal or a glam rock band, you could draw based on ads and you can develop a following. A band like us, it was like, we were lost in the quagmire of Los Angeles. I explained this in the book. We were lost in the quagmire of Los Angeles, but the music would appeal to like a national and international audience. It had a more broad, it had a broader commercial appeal is the point I'm making. So that didn't play so well in Los Angeles. So we had to find a club where, you had no heavy metal bands. And that was eventually for us, that was Madame Wong's West in Los Angeles, became our home.
Cool.
Gotcha. So these people who ended up getting involved and trying to promote you and everything like that on the business end, they must have really seen something in you, because it's one thing where you try to hop on a train that's already rolling in terms of everywhere you go, the place is packed out and they want to see you in 5,000 seaters or something like that, and then they try to get involved. But these people, it seems like they're trying to get in on the ground floor, because you got 75 or 100 people and they're saying, hey, these guys are going to be something. I see something very special here. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Well, the Judith Thornstein saw that she saw that, and when you say guys, I mean, she eventually just shopped us to the record companies, but she became very frustrated because, and this is you, the first day we met, you remember that we sat out in my car and listened. We were at the cigar shop and listened to an underground band song live from Madame Wong's. It so
Right.
happened, and you said, "Oh man, if only you went to New York, if only you went to New York." And that's eventually Judith was from New York. I believe she went to NYU. Went to law school at NYU. They have a law school, don't they, Mike?
Sure. Yeah, the last I heard.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know she, and that's exactly what she said. She became very frustrated that we couldn't get a deal because her exact words to me at one point were, "I think the sun has fried these people's brains because it's there. It's clearly there." And so that was really our big frustration, is that we didn't land a deal. But as the book entails, there were a lot of opportunities that we made ourselves.
So close. It's almost like when you go fishing and you got one on the line, it's almost up to the boat, right? And so the whole time you're
Yeah.
rooting for these guys to get this fish up to the boat. And there were people along the way, not even on the business side, who saw that as well. I mean, you had friends come out there and visit and say, "Hey, I want to stay. I want to be a part of this," right?
Right. Yeah,
What was that like?
absolutely.
What was that like to have people believe in you independently like that, who come out there and see what's going on and say, "Hey, count me in, man."
Well, they became family, and I'll give you one example. There's a guy. He's one of my closest friends. In fact, when you were at my wedding, Mike, you may have met him. His name's Jeff Whitehead, and he was an artist at the time, and he did a charcoal of a band photo, which is what this is.
Cool.
I have it framed down in I have the original framed in my basement. At the time, he was an artist. Now he's a luthier.
Oh wow.
He did really well in Silicon Valley in the computer world, and he became a luthier. He now has Jeff Whitehead Luthier LLC is the name of his company, and he came down from San Francisco. He was bartending and selling his artwork in San Francisco at the time, and he came down to Madame Wong's. And I remember seeing out on stage these two women that they're actually they were in their 20s. They were assistants to an agent by the name of Christy Barnes at ICM. Now, if you know anything about the music world or the entertainment world, ICM is International Creative Management, and it's one of the largest booking agencies, touring agencies, entertainment conglomerates of all time. They were big. And this Christy Barnes was contacted by Judith Thornstein to come see the band, and they came out. And Jeff is, I don't know how they knew he was with us, but they're like, Jeff said they approached him and said, "Are you with this band? And where's Judith? Is Judith Thornstein in this club?" And and Jeff is like, I'm their friend. I don't know. We finished the set, and this Christy Barnes and it turns out she came with a friend to the club. She walked up to me, and I'll never forget this, along the lines of so close, but yet so far. She walked up and said, "Let me be clear. I'll never forget this." She said, I walked off stage, and she said, "You guys should be on the road making money from your music right now." She said, "But I understand your frustration of playing in this city." She said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back and tell Christy how blown away we are. And we're going to do everything we can to help Judith make the band." Yeah, I mean, she was just floored. So on the one hand, there's all this satisfaction of getting a glowing report like that. On the other hand, it's like, well, we really love you, but get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I
man.
get it. You know,
Mhm.
that and $1.50 will get you on the bus, right?
Right. We're
Exactly.
used to it.
Exactly. You're not there until you're there.
Yeah.
I remember years ago reading GQ. I mean, the GQ magazine featured Sting, and they published his diaries. And it was one passage read, you know, Sting had a kid when they were coming up, and he's like, "Oh my God, I can't stand to see him suffer because, you know, like, is it going to happen? Is it ever going to happen? How much longer can I hang on?" And this is Sting.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Right.
I think he made it eventually.
A little bit.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's very revealing to show, and that's a great part of what this is all about.
Stuart Copeland shows up. No,
Yeah, Stuart Copeland. I ran into Stuart, but
he makes a brief appearance in the book.
it makes a brief appearance. There's some shameless name dropping in the book, but it's all true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I embellished nothing in this book. I embellished absolutely nothing. But
So Copeland's he was the drummer, right?
Stuart Copeland
Yeah.
for the Police.
Police.
Yeah.
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 Was he related to somebody at the
I have to
record
remember
company?
you were like 8 months old when the Police were happening.
Yeah, I was 0 when the Police were.
Yeah.
Philly's a little closer to my age.
Yeah.
He's having a laugh.
Yeah.
I was like 100 back then.
Mike, have you ever heard of the Police? And I'm not talking about the guys in uniform.
Yeah, I deal with them all the
Yeah.
time. I tell them my client will not be making any statements.
Right. He has all their autographs and everything.
We segued beautiful into that, man.
Right.
So didn't he have a relative who was involved in the record company or something like that?
Yeah, his brother, Miles Copeland.
Oh.
And the Copeland family were connected to the CIA, man.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Chris
What
might
was
have
going on
something to
with
say
that?
about that. He's very interested in that stuff.
Miles Copeland went on to form LAPD management, Los Angeles Personal Direction. They handled the Bangles, Oingo Boingo, and then he also created IRS Records, International Record Syndicate. You see the whole CIA
He
thing?
created the
Right.
IRS.
He created the IRS.
IRS Records,
Right.
International Record Syndicate.
That's funny.
That's
It's always
funny.
3 letters, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you think that it would have been beneficial if your brother was involved with the record company? Or
Oh yeah, I think it might have helped.
Yeah. Never heard,
But I
right?
mean, yeah, he managed the Police, and he eventually got their deal, and it all went from there. And if I don't know about Philly, I don't know how you feel, Mike. I don't know how you feel, but of all I have few favorite bands. The Grateful Dead is, believe it or not, one of them. I love their music. No, I'm not a Deadhead, and I did not see 875 concerts, but the Police are one of my favorite all time bands. If you ever hear,
Sure.
they're a phenomenon,
Yeah,
man.
they're undeniable.
They're
That
good,
is
yeah.
true. That is true.
Mhm.
So I guess my question was, and I could be a little more specific over here. I don't think it gives too much away. But when you're in the club and you got, let's say, 100 people who are there specifically to see you guys, they're really enjoying it. They're folks who are following you around. They love the show. They love the band. They love the songs. Is your high point seeing those folks, or is a high point being at this sort of upscale exclusive show that you're performing for these, elites, I guess we can call them, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's sitting there jamming out to your songs? What do you think is a higher point for you? Is there a difference between the two for you?
No, I mean, I mention celebrities only because I think if we have a celebrity encounter, what we're looking at is what kind of human being are they? You know, one guy I would love to meet someday is John Bon Jovi, because he is such a decent human being, and some of the things that he's doing for mankind are totally selfless and decent. But to directly answer your question, I
I
don't
think
want
if you
to
spend one summer on the Jersey Shore, you will change your mind because you'll hear his songs every other second.
yeah, well,
We'll talk
I
to him next week about it. He'll be on the show next week, so we can talk to him about
You'll be calling for the deportation of John Bon Jovi.
yeah, but I don't want to go to, I want to answer your question. I don't directly, I don't want to go to Los Angeles by way of Ontario from New York. It really was for me keeping our people happy, the loyal following that came out, that loved us, the people that we, did telemarketing work with, who were really salt of the earth people that were paycheck to paycheck, a lot of, the way we were. And,
Oh, paycheck to paycheck's kind of an understatement for what you guys were at that point, no?
Eventually it got to that. It started out pretty hand to mouth. I mean, it was pretty raw, and as I write, man, just to get out of the school bus that we were driving, that we were living in for a few weeks, and get into a place and that had a shower, and I mean, it was an incredible feeling to go through that, especially since none of us came from poverty. We didn't come from abject poverty. So to make the sacrifices we knew we had to make for this music that we so loved and believed in, it was necessary. But yeah, playing for those people that come out and tell you, when we leave the club, we're singing your songs in the car. Cool. To hear that,
yeah, that's cool.
I remember at when we were selling toner on the phone, that this girl came up. I guess I'll give this away, but I remember, we gave out a couple of the first band picture we had, and I'm on the phone and I'm in between calls, and she walks out and says, "Would you sign this? Would you autograph it?"
Cool.
I'm like, why? You know what I mean? And she said, and she wasn't being sarcastic. She said, because I think it's going to be worth something someday.
Wow.
That's
I'm
cool.
like, yeah, okay. And but the music had so much meaning, and it was, to describe the music, I can play a couple of quick,
yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah,
we can get to that.
Yeah.
I've got it queued up here, but it was very substantive lyrically. It had syncopated rhythms where people could dance. It had vocal harmonies that John and Simon, I didn't do too many vocal harmonies, but I was mainly a lead vocalist on the songs that I collaborated with John. But John and Simon worked really hard on the background vocals. So, as the reviewer from Music Connection magazine said, it gave the music this full orchestral quality, and people picked up on that immediately. They were like, they could dance, they could listen to the lyrics, they could sit back and yeah, I mean that
you had me at syncopated.
Well, I wasn't trying to turn you on, Chris. Not that there's anything wrong with
right
it.
Well, it worked.
What about so you had to do this telemarketing gig for quite some time, huh? What was that like? Did that make you nervous at all, having to cold call people?
Can you put that on hold for 1 second, Mike? Because I have a second part to your question. Okay. This is really important for me to mention. Philly, you and I were joking around there. Let me tell you something, man. We in terms of our following and the people that were coming to see us, the full spectrum came out. Blacks, whites, gays, straight people. You name a type of nationality, and we had it. And that was cool because it was the underground band, and there was this message of harmony, racial harmony, every kind of harmony. And I'll tell you the truth, I'm getting a little emotional right now thinking about that, because that's the future. It is people coming together.
Yeah.
Whether you're liberal, whether you're conservative,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Especially if you're writing songs that people can identify with. I don't know how many times I'll be listening to XPN, and there'll be a guy interviewed, and I don't particularly concur with all his views, but I hear his song, and it's a damn good song, and I'm like, you know something, I got to give credit where credit's due. That is a really good song.
Sure.
I enjoy that song. So, music can. John always said that. John always said, our music seems to soothe the savage beast.
That's a good thing.
So anyway.
Need more of that these days.
Tell us about telemarketing. What's it like calling people at random?
Oh, man.
Do you think you still got it? Because you obviously did well enough that you made enough money to get on your feet over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was selling toner to businesses for it's what you attorneys call the gray area of the law, Mike. I mean that, look, they followed through with it. They sent toner out, they shipped the toner, but instead of getting toner for, where their suppliers would give an office toner for $60, we were hitting them for like $260.
Oh wow.
Wow.
It was, and I mean, the Bangles sold toner. I forget which celebrity sold toner on their way up. It is the the occupation of the art community in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonder why that is.
Yeah.
There's stories that are in the book that I can't tell in this podcast. Put it that way.
Sure. Are there any? Did
Please
you have
do
any
tell.
reservations about doing that? Not because of what was involved specifically about upcharging and everything, but just the fact of getting on there and trying to do these cold calls and make these things happen. Did you have any hesitancy about that, or are you just that kind of a guy that you don't really mind calling people you don't know and chatting them up?
No, none whatsoever. The whole thing was like, the whole thing was role playing. You were more or less role playing. Yeah, this being Hollywood, keep in mind.
Sure.
And,
So you got people they're being actors on the phone for
the phone's good practice. The phone can be good practice. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we had to find jobs, and I literally hit the street, like, I don't know how many days we were only settled into our place on 4430 Fountain Avenue for days. And I'm walking I'm walking down, I think it was Vermont Avenue, or maybe it was off Sunset. And John had a job at Ron's Market, and you have to understand, all John ever did was play guitar and give lessons and play in Full Moon. He was only ever in a band, and now he's got this job. And he looked like he swallowed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The guy's pushing shopping carts and stuff.
Something 5-week-old spinach.
Right.
He's pushing a shopping cart. I had to laugh, and I'm like, so when John and Simon went into this place, this toner gig, they were elated because they could just sit there and make phone calls and get good at it, and eventually turn in some money, and not have to work until 5 o'clock in the afternoon either.
Right.
So I wanted in on that, and I describe it a little more in detail.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about, before you show us some of the songs, we cut you loose. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the low point was? We talked about some of the high points and being able to perform for these people who were loyal fans and traveling around with you. Tell us a little bit about, what was one of the low points for you?
I think being alone, and when I say alone, like, yeah, you're a musician. You're a musician in Los Angeles, and you're one of 1,000 15 or maybe 3,000. Nobody cares. You have no social life. You have no money, and you have no girlfriend. I mean, we started out being really secluded. You know, we didn't meet anyone, and I just remember sitting with my guitar, you know, like looking around, like where the expletive deleted am I? You know, what the hell? You know, this. How the hell can we pull this off? I mean, what's the next step? You know, and it's like, well, you know, I'm alive, and then you start counting your blessings and looking at it like, you know, somehow, some way, some way, you just have to have faith. You have to have belief.
Is that Brett Michaels calling you?
Sorry about that, man. I should have
John Bon Jovi, probably.
Yeah, it was Brett Michaels. He's like, "Hey, Jack, I heard you give me a shout out on the Mike G in the Morning program."
That's funny.
But no, I think at first things got better. And the reason they got better is because we worked our asses off, man. I mean, we really applied ourselves, and we really worked hard, and we really went after it. And you don't have time to feel sorry for yourself when you're putting forth that kind of energy, I think is the best way to describe it philosophically. And it's ironic, you know, we're the underground band, but we have like a conservative philosophy in terms of you know, how to motivate ourselves, and in terms of coming up with the strategy and applying it.
That is
hard
true.
work.
That's very true. I never thought about it from that angle. That it's very much a self-made, you know, we're gonna work hard and do this for ourselves. We don't need any handouts, not relying on anybody else.
Yeah.
Pull yourself up from your bootstraps kind of thing. That it really is that kind of a story. The epitome of
at this point, I can interject the fact, what chapter is it? You know, there's a whole chapter on the drummers. I don't, did you enjoy that chapter on how
sure.
It was,
you had, well, that's crazy, because the one guy who you had to ultimately let go was not that sort of guy. He didn't have that attitude. He didn't have that motivation like you guys had, and that's what ultimately, you know, led you to a part, right?
It was,
and you can mention it if you want.
Yeah, it was Frankie Avalon Jr. And it was really funny, because Simon is, you know, Simon had the whole list of drummers on a yellow pad. I didn't say legal pad that time. I said yellow pad. He's not an attorney either. You can only say legal pad if you're an attorney.
Right.
But he's looking at, he's standing there, and we had already been through, I'm gonna take a shot and say like 40 drummers, and it just wasn't happening. You know, we're like, when can we find someone? You know, John Simon and I had timing independent of a drummer from John inculcating that into us song after song without a drummer. All right, you know, like moving his hand like a metronome, so that we would have that kind of timing. So when a drummer came in and they were falling apart, we knew it, and nothing good was coming our way. And even though we had, I'm going to say, by that point we had about 40 auditions in, and Simon's looking at the yellow pad and he's like, I talked to the guy, sounds legitimate. It was Frankie Avalon. You know? and he was incredible. He was just an incredible drummer. But you know, you mentioned our low point, and you know, from going out and not and having to live hand to mouth. I think he had I'm pretty sure he had an apartment in his father's house at the time. He was surfing. He had celebrity friends. I mean, great guy and an incredible drummer, but we were worlds apart. He was living in a different world than we were. And let me just say, I'm not trashing the guy in any way, shape, or form.
He was a different position in life. I had a coach who said starving wolves hunt better, you know?
Yeah. I like that. I mean, you know, he's doing fine. He's doing all kind of session work, but he was a phenomenal drummer, man.
We got a question for you. Rita says, Jack, we're in the same circles as Southside Johnny, Alan Mann, and Ken Queter. My husband was the drummer for Alan Mann.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Rita. That's cool.
You recognize the names?
Yeah, Southside, certainly. Yeah.
Wow, very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Very
that's
cool.
great.
Very
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank
Hey
you
now, Rita. Hey now.
Hey now, Rita. We got Durso checking in. Says, hey now, greetings.
Hey
all.
now,
Hey
Durso.
now.
SM Durso.
DG checked back in. Says,
welcome back.
tuning in. DG, hey now.
Hey now. Hey now.
So, Jack, why don't you go ahead and play one of those tunes for us?
All right, man.
Please.
What's this one called? Before you play it, why don't you tell us what it's called?
This is at Madame Wong's. I'm afraid it's going to be a little low tech. It's just coming through my Bose here.
That's right.
It's a recording of us playing live at Madame Wong's. It's called "Put an End to This." It was made through the condenser mics of my Bose or not Bose JVC box that we had set up in the club. But you should be able to hear it.
We'll get the picture.
Put an End to This is about world peace, and it's one of John's. It's a really good song.
At you live, the Underground at Madame Wong's.
Underground.
Put an end to this.
Put an end to this. Hey now.
Hey now. Check it out.
Spending so much money, wasting so much time. Still we turn our backs and say that the problem isn't mine. Build ourselves a world wrapped in a big fear. We're asking for an answer. Anybody here?
All right.
Very nice.
Is everybody holding hands and tearing up and envisioning? I'm being sarcastic because it really is a beautiful song. I mean, and who can argue with that? I don't care if you're if you've got posters of G. Gordon Liddy on your wall, or
we want more war. We want more war. Boo.
or Jerry Rubin. I mean, it makes you feel good. Put an end to this. Put an end to it. And
I think it's become more and more of a conservative principle in the last decade or so, don't you?
Wait, say that again, Mike.
I think that's become more and more of a conservative principle over the last 10 years or so. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I think the tide is sort of changing in that regard. It's just an all around groovy song, though, right? It just makes you want to bop your head when you're listening to it. Very cool. You guys sound very tight. I'm actually very surprised with the quality of it, based on how you number one, how it was recorded. Number two, the fact that you're just playing it for us over there. That sounds real good. And you guys are real
Well,
tight.
I appreciate the opportunity. It makes me feel
Mhm.
good after all these years to play it.
Well, you know what would be pretty cool is if there were a way for people who bought the book to get some kind of access to this stuff at some point. So we'll have
Yeah, it
to
would be.
work with you to get that together somehow, where they can listen to this stuff. Because as you're reading through the book and you get to read the lyrics of the songs along the way, you're like, oh man, I wonder what that sounds like. You know, I want that in my head.
Is it on YouTube or anything, Jack, or no?
No,
Not
No.
yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
it's not.
Coming soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Not yet. So, Jack, one more time, tell everybody the name of the book and where they can get it, how they can get a hold of it.
The existence of the poor and unknown, the story of the underground band in the 1980s. I'll also indicate it's about, for that matter, it's about Full Moon. Had it not been for Full Moon and what a brilliant band they were, we never would, nothing would have happened with us. So I think it's essential to give Joseph Paul Fisher, John's brother, tremendous credit for being a part of that, and then being our drummer. You know, those jam sessions were how it all happened, and you know how it all came to be. It's available on Amazon.
If you type in "Existence of the Poor and Unknown" into Amazon, and we'll put the links out there
Yeah.
on our social media platforms. But if you type in "Existence of the Poor and Unknown" in Amazon, it pops right up. And if you order it right now, you can get it delivered if you have Prime for free by Saturday, September 10th. So $20
Nice.
for the book,
2
free
days.
delivery by Saturday, September 10th if you order right now. That's a heck of a
Or
bargain.
ebook. They can get it on ebook.
Or you can get it, yes, you can get it as an ebook and you can read it instantly. You don't even have to wait for it to show up.
Very environmental as well.
And Mike, at this point, can I also give special thanks to my beautiful wife, Lisa Beth?
Oh, you better. You better.
Who formatted this. I mean, I'm a computer moron, and she took my Word document and she put it all together for submission. I never would have known how to do that. I was even concerned I was gonna I would be able to click onto your link. You know, I double click onto a link. I mean, that had me highly concerned. I was on an hour and a half before the podcast practicing that. Yeah.
Well, maybe I wonder if there's a way we could get a copy of one of your discs, if you didn't mind, and we could play your music in the future on other episodes, if you're okay with that.
Yeah,
Of course, I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right.
And the quality would be much better if we could get a copy of it, so we could rip it onto here. It looks like Russ, the producer, posted the link to Amazon in the chat over here. So anybody who's a part of the live stream right now, who's participating, or who watches in the future, frankly, can click on this link in the comments for the Amazon book order. So that's great. Jack, any other parting words for our audience? Obviously, thank you to your wife. She played an incredible role in all of this.
Yeah, she did. She most definitely did. And everybody, I just want to say to everybody and anybody who tuned in, first of all, your show's fantastic. You guys do an incredible job. You really do. But to everybody and anybody who tuned in and listened tonight, thank you. I really, as you know, Mike, I poured it all out in this book, especially the last chapter, which is called Adjustment in Perspective, about how it all ended and how my life changed. And so I'm glad that I was able to share such an incredible part of my life, such a formidable part of the life that made me who I am today in many ways, because it goes to show you that when you're dealing with despair, when you're dealing with great challenges and you don't have much in life, you're at your strongest point. So anybody who does join me in this journey of the underground band, the existence of the poor and unknown, I thank you for your support, and I really hope you enjoy the book.
That is sort of a comeback story in its own respect, then, I guess, because, you got all the way to right on that cusp, and to have that end. A lot of people end up becoming drug addicts, or, they never become anything. They crawl into a hole and die after something like that. But you had this life after the band where you had a successful career, you've got a wife, and you've done a whole lot since then. So in that respect, I guess it is sort of a comeback story. But everybody's going to check it out. Really, congratulations on putting together something so excellent, Jack. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mike. Philly, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show. It was really enjoyable. Thanks.
That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor of Philosophy. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.